Today we're diving deep into Doro Wat, Ethiopia's iconic chicken stew. From spice blends to spiced butter, we're making everything from scratch to understand what makes it so special. We start with the Berbere, which is often prepared once a year after chili harvest in large batches, dry red chilies. The backbone and the namesake of the spice blend, sun-dried after harvest to preserve their heat, color, and fruity brightness. Stems and most seeds removed to avoid bitterness, and we soak with hot water to soften them for pounding. 20 minutes. Now we make our chili paste. We squeeze our chilies to have more control over moisture, ginger for some warmth, garlic for some savory depth. Some recipes also call for onion, which will give you a sweeter, rounder profile. And if access permits, this is when you would throw in some local Ethiopian herbs. There we go. And of course, the pounding and grinding motion would puncture the cell walls, releasing all those beautiful flavors. Once you have a paste-like consistency, we thin with a tiny bit of water to help us better form the paste. Traditionally, water is used instead of the soaking liquid to maintain the brightness and avoid bitterness. And don't worry about the skin too much. The drying process will help us break down the skin further. Perfect. Now, grab a tray lined with parchment paper, and we spread this into a thin layer. Now you can allow this to dry in the sun, or in our case, the lowest setting in our oven. This is the key to mellowing the sharp heat and developing a rounder flavor. We then break our delez into chunks. And grind into a coarse powder. And pass it through a sieve. Now the spices, they vary by region and household, but the overriding objective is to bring warmth, complexity, and freshness. We have the fenugreek seeds, which brings this nutty, almost maple-like note with a hint of bitterness. Cumin seeds for some earthy warmth, coriander seeds for some citrusy freshness and floral lift, black peppercorn, the main pepper before the arrival of chilies in Ethiopia. This brings some earthy heat, cloves for some warmth and almost medicinal-like sweetness, allspice, berries that taste like a combination of cloves, cinnamon, nutmeg, arjuan for some thyme-like sharpness. We toast them, ideally one by one, to activate their volatile oils. Let them cool slightly to prevent clumping, and we grind. And that's our Berbere. Now the Niter Kibbeh, spiced clarified butter with a preparation much like ghee. We melt the butter slowly. First, the milk fat melts. Then, gradually, the emulsion breaks and the water sinks to the bottom. The milk solids sinks even further to the bottom, with some lighter protein forming a foam on the surface. Now, the aromatics and spices, once again, varies by region or household. Similar candidates to the Berbere, with the addition of onion for more savory depth and subtle sweetness. They go in early, before the water content has fully evaporated, to impart their water-soluble flavors. Once this is fully evaporated, some of these beautiful flavors will be trapped by the fat. Of course, the fat itself would take on all the wonderful fat-soluble flavors. These two combined is what makes Niter Kibbeh more than just spiced ghee. And just like ghee making, we're gently toasting the milk solids, giving us a subtle, nutty, caramel-like complexity. Low heat, about half an hour, stirring occasionally to prevent the bottom from catching. We strain very carefully. And your kibbeh is ready. We have the spice mix, we have the spiced butter. Now let's make our what? The star of the show, our mountain of onions. Traditionally, you would use Ethiopian red onions. They're small, fibrous, pungent, and sweet. Supermarket red onions tends to have a much higher water content and less fiber, so it's important that we adjust our cooking time and quantity accordingly. That's why many recipes call for shallots, as it behaves much closer to Ethiopian red onions. Whatever you choose to use, low heat, dry pot, chopped, minced or pounded onions in. This is what makes Doro Wat truly special. There are many recipes of onions taken really far, very gradually. French onion soup comes to mind. In all those recipes, the fat goes in first, and the fat in turns coats the onions. Yes, that provides more even heating, but that also slows down moisture release. Only when the onion's hot enough and generated enough steam, the cell walls rupture and moisture gets released, then evaporated. During that brief contact, the onion flavor, which is water-soluble, managed to somehow cling on to the fat, and that's why a French onion soup is very onion-forward. In our case, the heat releases moisture from our onions immediately. This will then gradually be evaporated. The onion flavor has nothing to cling on to and has no choice but to escape with the steam, leaving us with sugars and proteins, amino acid to be more precise. And we know with those two, we get complexity with the Maillard reaction, and later, nutty roasted notes from gentle caramelization. More importantly, we will be left with a matrix of fibers. Think about traditional aioli, where the pounded garlic acts as the natural emulsifier for the extra virgin olive oil. Here, our mountain of onions will become the natural emulsifier for our spiced butter, and later a natural thickener for our wort. And we mother this until sweet and jammy, about 40 minutes. Once your mountain has collapsed, the pink became purple, the purple became brown. With a hint of golden, we introduce our spiced butter to form the emulsion and for the flavors to integrate our hot aioli. And traditionally, this is a very rich dish with a very generous amount of butter. Much like the roux, you might not see the fat, but you'll taste the richness. And if you've not made this before, I highly encourage you to taste the onion paste before the addition of the butter, just to really see the difference. You might not see the fibers, but your right arm feels it. Once we have this fruit jam-like consistency, fresh round of aromatics, ginger, this time for some zesty freshness, and garlic, this time for some pungency. Now we add our berbere to bloom, imparting the wonderful fat-soluble flavors, and to cook off the raw edge of the chili at the same time. You can smell the fruity note immediately. We've gone above and beyond today, making everything from scratch. But if you've not done this before, buy the spice mix, use ghee. The onion method alone makes it truly special. Definitely worth trying. Now, the chicken, as per tradition, 12 pieces, so we're missing the gizzard, bone in, skinless, marinated in a bit of lemon and salt for about 30 minutes to clean what is traditionally freshly slaughtered chicken. For the home kitchen, use thighs or drums. They tend to stay tender after long cooking. We add enough water to cover half of everything. Salt, including the marination. In total, you want to aim for 1.2% salt of the weight of the chicken to be your starting point. Lid on, and we simmer until tender, about 40 to 50 minutes. With 10 minutes to go, we drop in a few hard-boiled eggs. But before we do, we make a few incisions, and this will really help them take on all the beautiful flavors. Here we have some onion magic. Look at that. Now, besides the lemon we use to marinate the chicken, we have not introduced any other acid. That is because Doro Wat is almost always served with injera. Think sourdough bread, but 4 times more acidic. So if you plan to have this with rice or regular bread, make sure you add a dash of lemon juice for balance. And this is Thank You Ethiopia.